Welcome to SOapbox, the official podcast from Spencer Ogden. In this series, titled Voices of the Energy Transition, we explore the major forces reshaping the global energy industry. Each quarter, we'll tackle one key theme across talent, ESG, financing, and innovation. Hosted by our team members in Australia, New York, London, Malaysia, and beyond, SOapbox delivers regional insights and expert perspectives to help you stay ahead in the energy transition.
A massive welcome to everybody for tuning in and a massive welcome to Andy. Today I'm joined by Andy Baker. Andy is the Director of Energy and Natural Resources with Zend. So we're super excited to have you come and speak to us, super excited to have you join us. We're going to be discussing insights on talent and the energy transition that we're currently going through at the moment, and also kind of your role and how that's progressed during the times. So Andy, would love to have an introduction into yourself, a bit about your background, and also kind of your role within Turner Townsend now as well.
Great. And first of all, thanks very much for having me on your SOapbox series. It's always a big passion of mine to look at talent and how we're actually bringing talent through in the business, and also across reasonable sectors that are out there, and people who are making the change and the transition from maybe oil and gas sectors into renewables, vice versa, and also some of the emerging sectors that we get coming through. So thanks very much for having me on. So a little bit about myself. So I work with Zend, which is a global project management and program delivery partner. We're probably one of the largest, if not the largest, pure play project management and program partner globally. We're owned 70% by CBRE and then 30% by the partners within Zend. And we operate on a truly global platform with around 22,000 people working for us, working across a multitude of sectors, mainly in the segments of real estate, infrastructure, and energy and natural resources. And my role is as a director of an organisation is looking after our European business in energy and natural resources. So we have a range of clients across a number of sectors, including clean energy, which includes onshore wind, hydro, nuclear as well. We then go into the transmission sector as well, looking after onshore and offshore transmission for our clients in terms of the project management piece. And then we look into the conventional oil and gas, low carbon energy, carbon capture. And then we even do a little bit of metals and mining, not so much in Europe, but maybe a little bit further afield across the world in maybe Australia, Canada, and Africa. So our remit there, and my remit within that, is really looking after our clients in our main service provisions, looking at project management, cost and commercial, project controls and performance, and more increasingly on the digital side and program advisory.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you for that overview, Andy. Really interesting. And I think what's interesting as well is the sectors that you guys operate in is very much aligned to the sectors that Spencer Ogden operate in as a business. And we can kind of see the transition. Well, I've definitely seen over the last 4 years the transition and journey that we've been on as a business to kind of diversify how much of our, let's say, NFI is coming from those sustainable markets. And I mean, when I first joined Spencer Ogden, predominantly working in the chemicals market, and now predominantly 80% of our workload is now coming from sustainability. So I've seen kind of the market develop over the years. How would you say, in your position, how has your role changed over the years in response to kind of shifting priorities of the energy industry?
Yeah, I think I've been in the energy industry now for about 25 years. I started straight out of university, working on one of the very first commercial offshore wind farms in the UK.
Wow.
I think you've seen a complete change over those 25 years as we've gone through that cycle of it being very niche, small, trying to prove the market, trying to prove these technologies that are coming through, to where we are today, where we're going at pace and at scale for major mega projects that are coming through. And I've definitely seen the skills needed for that, as well as the investment profile for it, change significantly. So I think what you're saying, let's go about the chemicals industry, very well-established industries now, especially on the infrastructure side, elsewhere, are now pivoting skills, experience of using mega projects and then leveraging those into the new energy transition space now.
Mm-hmm. That's really interesting what you said there around kind of pace and scale, because we're seeing the pace of the energy transition against the need of climate change. Actually, it's not keeping pace. And as a business, we're seeing challenges kind of around investment, policy, political will, like you just said. Could you dig a bit deeper into kind of your view on that and how you've seen that over the years and what that means for us now?
Yeah, I think Townsend is really all about working in partnership to deliver some of the most impactful projects and programs globally, whether that's across the sectors I've talked about, but elsewhere. But those programs, a lot of them, especially from the funding that goes into them, whether they're private funded or public funded, have challenges. And a lot of that is around the regulatory regime that sits in there. Sometimes it hasn't kept up a pace with what we want to be doing in terms of the investment side. And also you're seeing maybe some of the established or more established energy transition sectors like offshore wind, for example, now seeing a scalability issue and regulatory and permitting and licensing side keep up with it. So again, I think that's probably one of the biggest trends is how government are making the commitments, but then how do those actually flow through and follow through to actionable investment and delivery of programs and projects? I think if you look globally and you see some of the regions, I probably 15 years ago when I was looking at China, China was mainly coal driven in terms of its energy production. And if you now look at its offshore wind, its renewables, its electrification that it's brought in at pace, it's been driven by a very different regulatory regime to perhaps we're seeing in Europe and the West. But it just goes to show you what can be done if the governmental regulatory regime is aligned to be able to focus on that and get things done. I'm not saying that the Chinese way is the way to do it for everyone, but it just shows what can be done.
Yeah, 100%.
I think the other part to it is really we're trying to change a lot. When you look at the scale of what we're trying to do at the moment, the transmission upgrades to our electrification of our economies, the decarbonisation of heavy industry, these are complex and heavy capex intensive type programs. So it does need time, it needs control, it needs management, it needs governance that goes across that.
100%. And that's obviously where they can come in as that partner with people that they've got capabilities like yourself in the business that have experienced this before. And just going a bit deeper into what you said about China then, because obviously when these huge transitions happen, these huge changes happen, there's a lot of lessons that can be learned, right? Would you say there's any lessons that you learned during that time that you'd be happy to share, or even lessons that you still take into day-to-day projects now that you're working on?
Yeah, I think we're very much about having principles, having the right people in the work and team working with the client to actually deliver the projects that's there. No project is delivered by single individuals, but it's a group of individuals underpinned by data and processes to allow that to happen. I think if I look at mega projects that we're working on, the successful ones, as the project gets more complex, you need to get more simple. You need to simplify the processes and the principles of how you do that to align the teams that are on it. And I think it's really about finding what are the fundamental principles in the project that you are going to lean into, get the brilliant basics in place, but then really get around the delivery. What are your primary aims on it? What are your principles for actually delivering on that project? Is it really predictability? Is it cost? Is it control? Is it the governance side? Normally a successful project is all elements of that, but you have to decide what you're going to be doing on and concentrating and set the systems and processes up to allow that to happen.
100%. And I think that's something that we need to take into consideration more, that these projects aren't built off one people, they're not also built off one organisation. Everybody has a part to play. So I suppose what comes with that is finding the right people to come and work for Townsend, finding the right people to work for the young customers that really can drive that forward. What would you say the biggest challenge that you're finding in this energy transition market in finding talent?
I think talent is probably, one of the biggest challenges, as you know, Scarlett, to actually get people into the business, get them aligned with our values, aligned with the values of our client and what we're trying to do. I think one of the biggest challenges is also making sure there's a right fit between the individual and the organisation and the clients and the way we deliver things. That's something that we're very passionate about, is finding the right people. And not necessarily even with the right sector level experience, because if you've got the right attitude, the right fundamentals behind you, then you can look at it. So, I think as the energy transition gets more complex, because things are changing, more technologies are coming in, we're delivering projects in different ways. You have to have more of a mentality there to look at where can you get talent from in different ways, and whilst also growing your own talent internally as well, but making sure that you're developing at pace. I think it's using every tool in the toolbox at the moment to really get the right people in, making sure that they're getting great experience, they're learning a lot, they're really waking up on a Monday morning at 9 o'clock and going, I want to get on with this and really push forward. So it's a multitude of things. It's having the right projects, the right people, but then also giving them the right tools to really do the best that they can, because that's how they stay with you as a business and deliver the best for the client.
Yeah, 100%. Thank you for that overview. And I think something that I'm always quite strong to my beliefs with is kind of that 60% personality and 40% skill set. Because if there's only a 40% skill set, we can upskill them people. You guys can upskill those people, right? But it's about having the people that have got the right personality, the right mindset, and want to make that difference. You spoke a little bit there about Zen's values. What are Townsend's values? What do you look for in people? What do you value as a business that's really important when you're hiring people on a contingent or on a permanent basis?
So, I mean, our values, we kind of keep it quite simple, because, I mean, it comes back to that principle we were talking about. Is sometimes when you're working on complex environments, you need to keep the principles as simple as possible. Now, for me, I really like our values, because I think I'm quite aligned with them personally in how I see things. So we've got 3 main values. I think a lot of companies go into sort of like single words, but our senior management team spend a lot of time over the values and what that would mean. Because if you think about the complexity of the projects, the segments we go across, how do you distill that down into something that's meaningful to lots of individuals? So 3 main values. First one is love a challenge. Now, to us, that's pertinent at the moment. That's personally, it's pertinent. I think it's pertinent to the industry, is where it's going. So you've got to love that challenge and be challenged from a personal perspective, but also challenged on the projects you're working on. Second one is stronger together. True believer in the teamwork piece. If we can't be working together, we are definitely stronger together. No one delivers a project on their own. Everyone's got something to bring to the table. And it's us that, once we've got that value and bring that out in people, and also it reminds us to make sure that we are bringing the best out of people and bringing the best that they've got to work, and also in the client environment. And the third one is again, bringing the best out in everyone.
Nice.
We've got quite a big inclusivity piece. All of our major meetings are started with an inclusivity moment. So that can cover across all kinds of diversity pieces. And I think from my perspective, over the last 25 years, I probably haven't seen the level of uptake in that in the business. And it's actually I've really seen people think about some of the things that have been brought up, because sometimes you don't realize how ingrained it comes within you of how you approach things and how you take views on things. Everything from health and safety to different cultures. It's been actually quite interesting to get some of these things through. And it's also bringing out the best of some of our people to say, look, please come forward and feel like you're in an environment that you can actually share some of these experiences. I think we've definitely become stronger for it.
Wow, and that's really impressive, because I think, as we know, the pace of these projects, the pace of what people are moving on an hour to hour, day by day, week by week, we can forget, and people can forget, to create that psychologically safe environment. And when people don't have that psychological safe environment, they're not going to thrive. They're not going to love a challenge. They're not going to be better together, right? I think they're all absolutely great. Number 1 sticks out to me the most, of loves a challenge, because I think that challenge for some people can even be working in a team, and that's what they've got to do, because everybody's better together. When you say love a challenge, what's a challenge that you faced at Zen within a project or within your day-to-day that you've really faced it head on and you've loved every moment of it, and you've walked around, God, that was a big challenge, but I'm proud of that?
I think, as it being one of our first values, it's kind of the things that we also challenge each other on as well. So I think, when we look at us as a business, we've just gone through quite a big change recently as well. So, as I said previously, we're 70% owned by CBRE. CBRE took the decision to take their whole project management PGM group and put that into Townsend. So we now do the project management for the whole CBRE globally within that. That meant that we went from a business of 13,000 people, 14,000 people, with another 8,500 coming into the business globally. So the big challenge over the last sort of 12 months, and it will continue to be for the next 12 months, is really integrating those people in, understanding where they're coming from a CBRE point of view, and then looking at where are the similarities. The similarities are actually, it's great, because we've got very good alignment on values, very good alignment on the people, which is why it's great having CBRE as our major shareholder. But it's been a great opportunity for us to see what have they been getting involved with in energy transition projects. And although it's on the real estate side, which is different to my segment, it's given us opportunities to meet with different clients in a different way. They've also been interfacing and interacting with projects in a different way to what we're doing. So we're sharing learnings, we're sharing actually that there's more of a joined up start to finish in terms of like land acquisition, real estate comes into it. Then we come in with our project capabilities for energy and natural resources projects that go into that. And suddenly you start to see actually we're really offering some unique value to the client. So the challenge there has really been, I mean, especially in Europe, we've doubled in size of the people within a few weeks, basically. So how do we adapt to that? How do we make everybody feel, you talked about the psychological safety earlier, is the people moving into a new organization. That's a big change for people. What does that mean? How does it feel? So it's going for that piece, setting up those structures that are there. So we're dealing with all the challenges that come in from that, but also making sure that we're growing the business at the same time and delivering for our clients. So I think that's been the biggest challenge. It hasn't affected us as much as the real estate segment, but it's been great to have new colleagues and see new ways of working.
And new views as well, which is really important. And I suppose it comes back to that pace and scale, because I'm really glad that you spoke around the merger of CBRE and TNT, because it's obviously been spoken a lot on the market. We're obviously speaking to candidates, we're speaking to clients on a daily basis. And everything that we've heard or the references that have been done around the acquisition has been nothing but positive. And obviously, potentially competitors, other businesses are looking at that. And you guys now are double the size, double the capabilities, and have got so much strength and power within the market across all sectors now, which is super impressive. That also means that you guys have got to keep up with that pace, right? So you're on the up, and you want to keep that up for the next 10 to 15 years, forever going. Obviously, growing at such speed, growing when you've got such a presence and a strong name in the market is really tough, because everybody's watching every move, clients, competitors, consultancies, etc. What would you say the biggest drivers behind the talent shortage in the energy sector are right now, and how they're going to get ahead of that?
Yes, probably a couple of questions in there. Yeah, if I deal with the talent piece, I think that's quite important, right? I think it's probably the crux of what we're really getting to here. I think for us, we're quite an interesting business because about 95% of our business is employed by then. So we do, as you know, Scarlett, use contractors. And when you're looking at the scale of the projects that we're going into, it's quite large. So we're looking at talent to build people into the business, but we also are working with contractors, agencies, and so forth to help us provide the best thing for clients. I think if you're looking at what is our success and how we're going to grow, is remain laser focused on clients, laser focused on transforming performance on major projects, because we see it as a privilege to be working on these projects. A lot of these projects are globally significant, they're regionally significant, and they're significant to the countries that they're in. So if they're not successful, if they're not being brought in on budgets, if they're not meeting the schedule that needs to be there, that's a big impact, not just for the project environment that's there, but it's also for everyone else who's in there. And I think in terms of attracting talent, these are multi-year type projects as well. So they could be 5-10-year projects. So you've got to look at that in a different way. One, how do you upskill people who are joining the project? Because what you don't want is you're bringing in talent and people who've got the skills for day one, but they're going to be there for 3 years. You need to be looking at how are they going to be building within that project and what skills are they going to need to be developing. So that's a big thing for attracting talent for us. Is we're not bringing you into your skills today, but we're going to add to you. We're going to help you develop either through our own skills academies that we have and training, exposure to different projects, but also looking at challenging yourself of how are you going to develop and giving you the tools to do that. As we're going to see big challenges in the next 5 years with AI coming in. How do we all keep relevant with that? How do we make sure that our teams are thinking about it and being open to it? So I think that will help us attract talent, but it's a challenge, and no one has a simple answer to it, because if you look at the investment across Europe in energy transition, it's about $4 trillion. It's one of the largest areas of investment. So people have a lot of choices of places to go. But I would say if I was going around the other way and I was looking for a role within energy transition, so he's looking at what are the key skills that are needed for that. And it's not just sector knowledge, but it's also about attitude. And we talked about the values, we talked about the learning and the capability there. Is having that aptitude as well as attitude is just as important.
It's just super important. Yeah, I completely agree. And I think something that's really interesting that we spoke about there is that you guys are thinking about not your skills now, but what your skills are going to be for us tomorrow or in the future. Because what we're seeing, let's say, for example, we take the data center sector, for example, which is, of course, as you all know, going through a massive boom at the moment. And the talent in that market is very scarce. There's a lot of candidates that have got great CVs, have got the right attitudes, but potentially we know are coming from an oil and gas background, and clients aren't interested in taking them on because they need somebody to go onto that project tomorrow and understand how a data center works. And that's the same for all of these different emerging markets that are coming out now, where we haven't got candidates on the market that have got that experience yet, or they've got such little experience. When you think about growing a team, would you be open to bringing on people that don't have that particular project experience and developing them? Is that something that is in the talent strategy to do?
Yeah, 100%. And I think one of the biggest strengths is our openness in terms of looking at where that talent's coming from and what the underlying skill set is there, and then reviewing how quickly they can adapt or transition into that new sector. You obviously need to have sector level experts. You need sector expertise. It can't just be the service level piece, but that really underpins it. So if I take your example of oil and gas, when I first was getting into offshore wind, there was nobody with experience in offshore wind. We were working it out. We were using the skills that we had at the time to build the experience as we went. Now that's different today. But if you look at the scale of it, a lot of people who are working on offshore wind projects, a large proportion of that team have never delivered a full-scale end-to-end project. So they're having to learn on the job as well. So how do we enable that to happen? Well, one, we make sure we're looking at industries that have got similar type backgrounds, so we can transition that gap. We make sure that the teams have got a mix of sector level experience. We're talking about data centers, ensuring that there is data level experience there, but there's a mix. And also bringing on clients for the journey, because if you have a client we just want everyone who's got 15 years of experience in this, it's going to be very difficult to deliver that. However, we can deliver a service that can deliver that, but it's going to be a mix of people within that. And then you get the same outcome, but in a different way but actually I think you get a better outcome, really, with a mix of people in it.
That's really interesting. It gives us a clear picture of kind of where we want companies and businesses that we work with to start thinking like that, because I suppose a lot of that comes from being a complete partner, and also clients and consultancies or contractors and agencies having that trust piece. If you can create a story and you can build that trust to the client, they're going to want to come on that journey with you. You're going to want to go on that journey with them as well. And I suppose you've obviously been on that journey yourself as well, originally not always being within renewables, transitioning into that. What would you say experiences you've gone through that have shaped your perspective on the market and the energy sector and its evolution over the years?
I think, I've been quite lucky because before I came to London, I was working in an engineering business. So we were looking at global projects. We were working, throughout the project life cycle, all the way through from feed to delivery. And then in the later years, sort of doing more operations side. So I was quite lucky to be able to be involved in lots of different projects, whether it's oil and gas, whether it's hydrogen, whether it's offshore wind, but also in new markets as they emerge and established markets as well. So I think that the key thing for me is really making sure you get a breadth. What I look for when I'm talking to new people joining us is really, have they had a breadth of experience, especially when in your early years of your career, is have you been going to site? Have you tried going to different projects? Have you got a breadth of experience there? And there's a lot of companies now who've got a breadth that can give you lots of experience within the company. And you also get people now who want to move around a lot of companies and get that experience. But I think there's certainly a lot of companies now that can give that internally. I mean, I stayed with the same company for about 20 years. Before moving on, I certainly got a lot of experience there. But I would say definitely in energy transition, if you get the opportunity to work on site, go and see what is being built, understand the size and nature of these projects and the challenges that are delivered by the fabrication of them or being delivered at site. That gives you real insight if you're going to be project managing it or going to be involved in a project of that nature.
100%. And I think it's something that we hear a lot from our clients, Andy, is that they really want people that have had that on-site presence or are willing to be on site to see these things for themselves. And I think something that I've definitely noticed in recent years is the transition that after COVID and after Brexit, or troubles of people being able to travel across borders, and then obviously remote working was introduced, we're seeing less people come through that have got that on-site experience or are used to doing a site walk every single morning before the contractors get onto site. And that's becoming a challenge because that's where everything happens. That's where they need to see and they need to learn. Has remote working and the new regulations around that caused issues for you or for...
Yeah, I can't probably speak. I mean, let me talk from personal experience. I think remote working is fantastic, isn't it? If you can work from anywhere, you can get access to a lot more talent. You can make decisions faster. You can bring people in. So it has a lot of benefits. But it also, when you're delivering major programs, it can make it more difficult in certain circumstances. So I think what it's really about is being intentional. So it's being intentional about, if you're looking at your career and your talent development, it's saying, right, where am I strong? What am I doing? And what do I need to have access to? How do I make myself a more rounded individual? So that's the kind of advice I'd be looking for when I'm looking at CVs and interviewing people. I'm kind of looking at saying, right, actually, have they thought through, have they had some access to this so they can get some context of what they're trying to do? I think from a business perspective, it's great if you've had some site experience, but it's also important you just understand the complexities of it as well. Because if you look at some of the challenges, and a lot of that is global supply chains, and supply chains in general now are under pressure, not just from costs, but also from just demand and certainty and predictability has been quite challenging for the supply chain. But if you look at global supply chains, a lot of our fabrication that's being done in Europe and elsewhere is actually being done in the Far East. So suddenly that remote working capability becomes a real valid piece where you're not having to say, oh, it's just remote and we don't know about it. It's different time zones, but it's actually joining up and using the digital processes, using the mindset. Actually, we have products now where we're doing LiDAR scanning within the fabrication yards. So you're effectively taking snapshots using a laser scanner effectively from the engineering side that gives you visibility, walk around, almost like Google Street View type capabilities. So people who are remote or working in remote teams,
It's crazy what could be done.
Feel like they are on site and using that technology. And we're still really just scratching the surface of what we can do with that technology as AI comes in and linking it all together.
Yeah, no, well, that's a really refreshing perspective that we definitely don't get to hear every day. So thank you for that. And I think it's really nice to hear, obviously, the benefits, and then also kind of what expectations and values that you would have, which is obviously really useful, potentially candidates or people that are listening to this, to be able to take with them in potentially their next position or in their current position now. So thank you for that. I think just to wrap this up, I've got a few more questions for you, Andy, but looking ahead now, what excites you the most about the future of energy and what your role is going to be in shaping that?
Well, I think it probably comes back to that original value of love and challenge. I think if you look ahead now, you're starting to see, we've done a lot in the last 5, 10, 15 years, but you look at the commitments now, the investment, the CapEx, and I'm specifically talking about Europe, but actually globally, the scale of the challenge is there. It's a real challenge now to lean into, and we've got a real part to play in it. So I think what excites me about it is I truly believe that we've got a meaningful role to play in that, and it's a real privilege to be part of that. And I say to our teams, look, our performance on these projects directly impacts not only global climate change, but also the economies of the countries that we're working in. If we can't deliver these big projects on time, to budget, that affects investment elsewhere. It affects cost of electricity, it affects all these types of things. So I think what we're bringing to the market and our role in that really excites me, because the best thing you can have when you get out of bed in the morning is you're going to make an impact that day, you've got a purpose, and you're actually going to see some meaningful impact out of that. And I think it's always great to go get parties and get a tool and pick up the kids, and they go, what do you do? My funniest thing is my 7-year-old at the time said, oh, my dad's a wind farmer. We live in an agricultural society, so that was an interesting conversation. But I quite like the fact that we're working in a busy transition space, and we get the chance to work on some of the most impactful projects globally, and we get a chance to make a real difference. That's what I think is great for us and great for me personally.
Yeah, 100%. It's something to be proud of, and it's something that is going to have a knock-on effect, not just on the economy, but in future generations, like your children, like our children in the future, etc. It's so important. I suppose what you speak about on that Monday morning, it's almost a bit of a dopamine hit, right? Knowing that you're doing something good for the world, something good for your family, but for everywhere across the globe as well. So that's super important.
Yeah. But I just think it's one of the most exciting sectors to be in at the moment. And it has been for a while. I mean, yes, it's got challenges, but every sector has. And we just, I think.
Challenge.
Absolutely, yeah. But I just think it's great for people to be involved. You're building real stuff. You're making real differences to people. You're making real differences to clients as well, because you got to think it's not just us as the supply chain, but the clients are going through it on a journey as well. They're transforming themselves as well. So just if we can help with that, make them more efficient, make their people better, that's just great for everybody.
100%. And I think you're in the industry, I'm in the industry, and there's lots of people in the industry that are so passionate about it. And there might be people that aren't in the industry yet or are currently studying at the moment, and we want to get them as passionate, and we want them to know about the energy transition and what impact they can have. If you could give one piece of advice to emerging talent who want to make an impact in the energy sector, what would that one piece of advice be?
So, I mean, we have some, I keep coming back to sort of simple sayings, but it helps us sort of keep aligned in that sense. I think one of the big things that resonates with me is it's called strategy into action. So there's no point in having a plan unless you're actually going to start delivering it. So if you're interested, you're at university, what you need to be doing is sitting down and going, right, what's important to me? We talked about values. What are your values? What do you want to be doing? Where do you want to be? Get a strategy. That's great. Turn that into a plan. But the most important thing with the plan is to actually do the plan. So I would say sit down. The fantastic thing about the world now is you got internet, AI, resources. You can learn, you can spend all day learning. And sometimes that's probably not the best thing to be doing, but structure that as well, because you can just end up consuming, but really get strategy into action. Make a plan, start delivering on it, be conscious of that. Some of the things I was talking about, getting some site experience, working with different companies. The company you go and join in your 20s, make sure it's aligned with your values, what you want to be doing. Can it offer you the opportunities you want to be doing? And then really put that into action and hold yourself to account with it as well, I would say. If I was going through my early career pieces, am I actually delivering on what I said I was going to do? Am I actually pushing us forward? Spent a year, have I done it or not? And then assess and go, why didn't I do it? And really challenge yourself, not just everybody else.
100%. That's really inspirational. So thank you for that. And I hope that just changes a lot of people, but even one person's perspective and makes them follow that. So that's really interesting. I suppose as well, if we was to put it into simple terms, like the Nike slogan, just do it, is probably what I'll take out of that. Just go and do it, try it out, hold yourself to account and challenging yourself to do it. So thank you for that.
No problem.
Cool. Well, I think that's everything in regards to talent and energy transition. It's been great to have you on here. Really enjoyed speaking with you, and also really excited to kind of see where and take this journey with themselves and also with their client. Andy, could you tell us what's one book, film, or experience that's had a lasting impact on you personally?
This is normally one of the hardest questions, isn't it? So I respond to. I think, there's plenty of films and there's plenty of experiences, but I think one thing for me is I like reading books. I think you've got to keep reading. You should build that into part of your learning as you go forward and be broad on what you're reading. I think there's probably a number of books I would look at. If you're looking at sort of the personal development side, there's biographies to look at. I actually prefer those over business books. But if there's probably one book that I would look at, it's called The One Thing. Gary Keller and Jay Papasan. So this is effectively, it comes back to that theme we're just talking about. What is the one thing you need to be concentrating on today to make the biggest difference? And once you start building that concept and principle into, is it the one thing today? Is it the one thing for this quarter, this month? What's the one thing that's going to have the biggest impact? And work on that first, then you get a lot of development and performance out of that. So I think that's been really good. Actually, I might add another one in, if that's all right, Scarlett.
Yeah.
It's probably the thing for talent, I think, when they're joining a business. One of the best books I've read, The First 90 Days. You must know this one, Scarlett, by Michael Watkins.
Yeah.
That should almost be like, you get the job offer, you accept the offer. I always feel like we should kind of package that up and send it out with the offer.
For them,
So when they join the business or they join a business, you've gone through it, you thought, right, how do I make an impact on that business? how do I really lean into that new? And the good thing about it, it's not just for joining a new business, but it could also be a new role within a business. And if you're changing, if you're going sideways, you've been promoted or whatever, I think it's a great model for sitting there and going, right, let's come up with a plan, let's get a strategy, and then put it into action. Probably come back to that theme I was talking about.
Yeah.
But yeah, those two books are probably worth a read. Or get on a podcast and go for a run or a cycle.
Yeah. So we've got the one thing. So the one thing that's most important to you that day, that month, that's super important. Then of course the 90-day plan. And I suppose those things as well that you spoke about, Andy, it's interesting because that one thing is not just on professionally, it's not just in your work day, it's in personal life as well, right? What's the one thing that is important to you that day? What's important to you and your family in the next 3 months, and what do you want to achieve together? So that's really nice to tie that into that as well.
Great.
Perfect. Well, lovely to speak with you. Look forward to catching up with you soon. We'll go from there.
Well, thanks very much. I really enjoyed the conversation. Thanks for the questions.
No problem at all. So did I. Thank you very much.
Cheers. Bye.
Thanks for listening to Soapbox. If you've got thoughts or questions about today's episode, reach out to us via our website, spencer-ogden.com. Be sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and follow Spencer Ogden on LinkedIn for updates, insights, and behind-the-scenes content. Founded in 2010, Spencer Ogden is a global recruitment leader in sustainability, natural resources, and infrastructure. With 12 offices worldwide and over 380 specialists, we connect top talent across the full energy value chain, from finance to design to operations. Powered by our purpose of creating careers to power a sustainable future, we've spent 15 years building deep partnerships with clients and candidates to help drive the energy transition forward. We'll see you next time on Soapbox.